Today is December 8th, 2022. My name is Andrew House, and my partner is,
Kenyon, Gregory.
and we are students at Virginia Tech. We're in Blacksburg, Virginia, in the Athenaeum at Virginia Tech's library. Joining us remotely from Missouri for a oral history interview is Mr. Ronny Fraction Hobbs. Do you mind if we call you Mr. Fraction?
Yes, there's no Hobbs on the end.
Okay, my bad. I'm sorry. This interview is part of an oral history project that is documenting the family's history and descendants of the Fractions, a family of formerly enslaved people who lived at Solitude and Smithfield Plantation in Blacksburg, Virginia. Mr. Fraction, thank you for your willingness to share your story. And do we have your permission to record this interview?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I'll let my partner, Gregory, start us off with the introductory questions.
All right, Mr. Fraction, could you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Ronald Meredith Fraction.
All right. Can you tell us a little about when and where you were born?
I was born in Des Moines, Iowa. And at 3 years old, we moved back to Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota, when I was probably about 3 years old. The reason we was in Des Moines, uh, my father went to Des Moines to get work during the Depression. And when people were jumping out of windows, cutting their throat, cutting their wrists because they didn't have work and they didn't have money. When my dad went down to Des Moines and got jobs, he always worked. He was a worker. He worked and I was born in Des Moines because of that. After the Depression ended and the jobs became available back in Minneapolis, we went back to Minneapolis.
That's good for him. That's good for him. So,
Yeah.
what was it like growing up? I know you just talked about the hardships of getting a job and all that, but what was it like for yourself?
Well, I grew up in totally integrated Minneapolis. Minneapolis was not segregated at all.
Oh,
And we're talking, I was born in 1940, so I didn't know anything about segregation. The school that I went to was predominantly white. The school my wife went to was predominantly white. I think she was like from an 800 person class, and there was like 8 black people in her class. So we didn't realize we were black. It was completely segregated and integrated. I mean, completely integrated, and we didn't know anything about. When we see, well, in later years when we saw stuff on the news about the South and how the South was going and Martin Luther King and all that, and the civil rights thing, it was kind of like a foreign country to us. It was like something that why are they doing this? And that's kind of about that's what that's all about.
Okay. So what exactly was your career? What did you do for a living?
I was in construction. I was a commercial roofer. That's another thing. Excuse me. I started off my roofing career in Minneapolis, commercial roofing. We didn't do any houses or nothing like that. It was all flat top buildings and stuff like that. And I started in Minnesota, and we moved to Kansas City. I said, well, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But I said, well, maybe I will. And I did, and I worked for a company that was privately owned by one person, and it was a white company. And in Missouri now, we're talking Missouri. Missouri is a southern state.
Oh, yeah.
And after a year or so, about a year or so, I asked my employer, I said, I'm ready to take this to the next level, boss. And he kind of laughed, smiled a little bit. He said, okay. And he gave me a crew. And I ran a crew for many, many years of all white boys. And that's an accomplishment in itself.
Oh, yeah,
Ran a crew of all white boys, and I retired from there about 20 years ago. And there wasn't many black guys that came down the road looking for a job because it was hard work.
hmm.
And when they did come down the road, they didn't want to do the work too much. You know, they wanted to start off as the hierarchy rather than the beginner.
Mm.
Strange, but true.
Strange, true. While you're working in roofing, did you ever consider going into higher education?
No, I didn't because I was married young, had kids very young, two sons very young,
hmm.
and I did take a couple of classes at the University of Minnesota, but that just didn't lead up to nothing. Didn't lead to anything. No.
No. Okay.
Answer to that would be no.
Gotcha.
I had to work for a living.
Yeah, that's understandable.
I didn't have time to do what you're saying. Higher education.
Did you have kids? I think you said you had kids, right?
I have two sons.
Two
I have two
sons.
sons. One lives in Atlanta, Georgia. The other lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. One has one kid. The other one has three children.
Good.
My youngest grandchild is at Howard University, or second year at Howard University right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are their names of your children?
My oldest son is Troy. He was at Blacksburg last summer.
Okay.
Ooh.
And my other son is Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And he also was at Blacksburg last summer.
Nice. That's pretty good. Do you have any special family traditions you want to share with them, or do you share with them or anybody else?
Well, we come from a very strong bonded family.
Mm-hmm.
Practically all of our family members married and stayed married, still married. That's probably one of our strong traditions. I had four brothers and sisters, two brothers and two sisters. My brothers and sisters stayed married forever until they passed. I have one sister still alive. Her name is Marlon Robinson Fraction, and she is 95 years old. We was going to try to get her hooked up to this link. I don't know if she could get hooked up or not. I don't know if she could do that. She just maybe has a little bit of beginning dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if she could do that. But as far as our traditions, we've always stuck close together, and we talk to each other often, and we're a close family.
That's nice to hear. It's good to hear.
So, Mr. Fraction, when did you learn about your family's history and connection to Blacksburg?
Well, when I was 16 or 17, this is kind of interesting here. When I was 16 or 17, father, mother, my little adopted brother decided to take a train trip to Roanoke, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
This is at almost exact time of Emmett Till going from Chicago to Mississippi. While Emmett Till was going from Chicago to Mississippi, I was going from Minneapolis to Roanoke, Virginia. Okay, and I had an aunt. They say she was an aunt. I think she was. I'm not sure exactly how she was related. And lived in Roanoke, Virginia. We knew nothing about Blacksburg at the time, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And my aunt was she had a little bit of money. She was an educator. I don't know if she was a school teacher or whatever she was. She had a very nice house. on the edge of downtown. It was a four-side brick house with different brick covered patios and porches. It was a very nice house and very nicely furnished inside also. And we went there to visit her, and that's the first time I had been in across the Mason-Dixon line. That's the first time I had been in the South. I knew nothing about the South. I came from an integrated place, all integrated. I knew mostly white people. You know, I had a lot of white friends and a lot of black friends. Not a lot, but they were in my neighborhood.
Right.
Like, you know, like you could call my neighborhood almost. I don't know. There was black people in my neighborhood, and more than the rest of the city.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we got there, and I said, well, you know, it'd be nice to go downtown. She lived on the edge of downtown, Roanoke. It'd be nice to go downtown just to see what's down there, see what's going on and stuff like that. So I walked down there from the house, 2 or 3 blocks. And when I got downtown, I saw a nice shoe store in Roanoke. So I said, you know, we had never had a problem trying on shoes in Minneapolis, of course. So I went in, I see a nice pair of shoes in the window. Boy, I said, those are really nice. I'd like to have them. They look good on me. And I went into the store and I said, sir, I'd like to look at a pair of shoes. He said, all right, you got to go outside there. You go inside the building there, go outside, get the number of the shoes and the price. I said, okay. So I went out there and I got number 304, price $9.95. And I said, okay, and this is what it is right here, 304, $9.95. He said, I'll be right back. And he took off and he came back. The shoes was all wrapped up tight in a box and string around the box. So I said, well, I haven't even tried them on yet. Oh, boy. Right? Niggers don't try on shoes in this store. Where are you from? I said, well, from Minneapolis. You know, I didn't know that. No, you niggers don't try on shoes in this store. You want them, you buy them. If you don't want them, you don't buy them. Well, I didn't buy them. And I was kind of insulting. You know, the word insulting for a 16, 17-year-old kid is kind of funny sounding. But I was a little insulting. I was just a slight bit insulting. So anyhow, I did not get them. And when we was in Roanoke, my aunt told my dad, she called him Bud. She says, come on, Bud, get your family together. I'm going to take you for a ride. Hmm. Well, my aunt had a house in the mountains, up near mountain. You all know where that's at. But we got in the car and we rode toward Tinker Mountain. And we got between Roanoke and Tinker. And she stopped the car and she took us to a little patch of woods, which is about the size of 2 city lots, not blocks, but city lots. And we got out of the car and we walked into these lots that were covered with trees and weeds. It just looked like a patch of woods. And there were stones in there. She says, these are some of your relatives in here. These are fractions that are mainly in this cemetery. Mm-hmm. And I said, wow, that's interesting. Well, I was young, and that didn't really kind of make too much of a big hit on me because I was young.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's very, very, very interesting. But they were all glowed over. The cemetery, the grave sites were glowed over. They were just like rocks and so maybe a little etching on the rocks, carving on the rocks, and so on and so forth. And it was at an intersection, I remember that, between Roanoke. I've got to Tinker Mountain. My aunt had a very nice house in the mountains. It was a little rambler, one-level house. Mm-hmm. It was in the mountains, and you could see Tinker Lake from her house. And it was Tinker Lake was probably a mile away, or half a mile, 45, 3/4 of a mile away, but you could see it from there. And you know, I had to. She had a little 22. She said, "Oh, you can go out and shoot some stuff with this 22 pistol." I'd go out and shoot at rabbits and squirrels or whatever I could find to shoot at, which was not usually nothing. Then she told my dad, "Come on, bud, I want you to meet some people." I said, "Okay." And my dad said, "All right." So we all jumped in the car, and we went down the road from her, probably a mile, half mile down the road from where she lived, where her mountain house was. And there was a kind of a shack, nothing like what she lived in. It was a shack. It was like just a shack. And she said, "These are some of your relatives. These are some of your Fraction relatives." And I didn't get out and go in the house. My brother didn't either. My little brother didn't either. Adopted brother didn't either. But when my dad come back, he said the people weren't very hospitable. They were kind of cold toward him. The house, there was quite a few people lived in there at the time, and the floors were dirt, and there was no windows. There were shutters, and they stayed in there for 5 minutes. Came on back and got in the car and went on back to Virginia. Back to Roanoke, and that's basically my story from Roanoke.
So now that you mentioned when you were younger, it didn't click with you as much. Now that you're older, how are you taking that information, and how's it changed you? Or
Well, when I got this information about the Fractions in Blacksburg, Virginia, which I didn't know where that was, and realized it was so close to Roanoke, Virginia, I'm going, wow, that's a lot of waters went over the falls since then.
Yeah.
A lot of things have happened since then. I wasn't a part of it, and when I was there, it was just differently. And I spoke earlier about Emmett Till and myself. Well, Emmett Till went to Mississippi.
Yeah.
Roanoke was no Mississippi. And again, Minnesota was no Chicago. Chicago was no Minnesota.
Yeah.
We were more integrated in Minnesota than they were in Chicago. So, had I have probably had a different attitude when I went to Virginia, maybe things might have turned out different, not so good. But I always try to have a positive attitude and, speak to people in a respectful way. And I think what you were thinking went okay, for me. And I'm glad nothing happened. And another thing, I tried. I was thinking about this the other day when we took that train ride. I never thought about it until just recently. We took that train ride from Minneapolis to Roanoke, Virginia. I do not remember a black railroad car we had to sit in. And I thought about it. I said, well, they must have been. When we crossed that Mason-Dixon line, especially when we got further, through West Virginia, there must have been a black car, but I don't remember that. Maybe you all would know more about that than I do. But I don't remember that, which I thought was going from the north to the south was very strange, because there was not a black car we had to sit in. Does any of you have any input on that? Have you ever heard of anything like that?
No, not in particular. No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Fraction, have you returned to this area since you were a teenager, or was it just a one-time experience for you?
That was a one-time experience. The closest I've got, I drove north from Charlotte through the mountains and got up to about Kentucky and hung a left and went on back toward Missouri.
Hmm.
We've been living in Missouri for quite a while now.
Okay.
Quite a while.
I have two kind of bump questions that bump off each other. You're telling us the story of you going down to Roanoke, Virginia, and have you told your sons the stories of you in Roanoke, Virginia, and would you consider taking them to those places?
I have told my sons,
Okay.
and I have told them that, and they were there.
Oh,
Not
okay.
Roanoke, not Roanoke, but they were in Blacksburg.
Hmm.
In fact, there was another person in lives in Roanoke,
Hmm.
and he's also a fraction. That we kind of became. I kind of like told him I'm adopting him because his last name is the same as mine,
Oh.
and he's been living in Roanoke all the time. So I told him I'm adopting him, one of my sons. He's a little bit. He's younger than actually he. My son that lives in Charlotte works for what's the name of it? Wells Fargo Bank. Wells Fargo Bank has a large um, network and books and telephone directories and stuff like that. Well, he was looking in there and he found a guy by the same name as him,
Hmm.
David Fraction. So he gave him a call, and this David Fraction lived in Roanoke, Virginia.
Wow.
So David said he had the same name, David Fraction, Roanoke, Virginia, and David Scott Fraction in Charlotte, North Carolina. So he calls him, and David said, "Well, me and my wife were planning on coming down to do shopping. That's the bigger
Hmm.
town, and it's not really too far away. So we just drive down there a couple of times a year and do shopping. Just go to baseball games and stuff like that. And we're
Hmm.
coming down to a game." So my son said, "Well, I'd like to meet you. We will go to the game with you. We'll go shopping with you. We'd just like to meet you." And David came down and met my son David, and they had a good time. David's a great guy. Both Davids are great guys. They
Wow.
said David's a great guy, and he said he seemed like family from the very get go. And they've kept in contact, and like I say, David up in Roanoke like a city star athlete, football player. He was like big time football player who lived in Roanoke. So they got along real good, and I haven't I haven't. And it's kind of funny, you say, "Well, have you taken your children back to Roanoke?"
Right.
Well, my children aren't exactly children anymore.
No.
The youngest was 61, the other was 62. So not exactly kids to grab by the hand. Come on, children, we're going to take a little road trip.
Oh, you put it like that. No, they're not.
Well, have
So
they been to Roanoke and Tinker Mountain?
they went to Roanoke. They went. They Yes, they did go to Roanoke because I think there was no. How did that work? I don't know if they drove to Blacksburg or flew, but they did go through Roanoke. Yes, they did drive through Roanoke. Yes, yes.
That's amazing. That's
It is
absolutely amazing that
amazing.
you can still find family through
Yeah,
the phone book like
yeah,
that.
yeah. And
Mhm.
we think that David may have been.
Oh,
Are you
you're good.
still there?
Yep, we're still here.
So
I
yeah.
lost you. They think that David may have been one of the mountain people. We think. We think. I think I'm getting a phone call coming in. They hung up.
Okay.
Okay, they think he may have been one of the mountain fractions. We think.
I've never heard of the mountain fractions. Can you please?
There was a mountain fraction in the city fraction.
Okay.
And
All right.
and I I looked when the fractions started getting together a couple of years ago. I looked on MapQuest or maps at
Mhm.
Roanoke and typed in Tinker Mountain in Virginia, and I did find a lake there, and it looked like it could have been the lake because there wasn't any other lakes. And from where I could see, Tinker, it looks like they had built a couple of new roads and highways in between my aunt's house,
Mm-hmm.
and they might have taken my aunt's house for some of the highways, interstates.
Right.
So I mean, I haven't been. I don't know anything about that. Well,
Hmm. Interesting. So if there's two different sides of the faction family, the mountain faction and the city faction, uh, do you say know much about how they migrated around the U.S. as you made it to Missouri and Minnesota and others are in other states? If you have any.
I have no idea. I have no idea. In fact, we always thought we were alone. You know, we've been seeing people with the last name Fraction
Mhm.
for the last 25, 30 years. Yeah, we went to a banquet, and a woman singing, her name was Fraction. And that's the first Fraction we ever met. And her name was very rare, so we went and talked to her. And we could not tie anything together at all, not even at all. And since then, we've seen other fractions. We was able, you know, I listen. Get a load of this one. We live in Missouri. On one side of the state is the gate to the west. That's where we live. On the other side of the state is St. Louis, which is a gate to the east.
East.
And the gate is the arch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever seen the St. Louis Arch, but that's supposed to be the gate to the east. Okay. Well, many times we went to St. Louis to get to and we have to, it's the only way you go. Either go through St. Louis to get to Atlanta or Virginia or North Carolina, yeah. Only way you get to North Carolina is go through St. Louis. My wife is in here because she's kind of coaching me. Everybody ought to have a coach, you know. Anyhow, and one time I looked in the phone directory and I found a guy. Listen, in my state named Ronald M Fraction.
Okay.
I said, wow, Ronald M Fraction in my state? That's interesting. So from Kansas City, I called him. I said, hang on just a second, fellas. Excuse me. So I called him up and he said, is this Ronald M Fraction? He said, yeah. I says, my name is Ronald M Fraction. He said, yes. And I said, no. I said, you don't understand. I'm Ronald M Fraction. My name is Ronald M Fraction. He said, who is this? I said, it's Ronald M Fraction. Yeah, but who is this? What do you want? Well, I said, I looked in the phone directory, and I found your name. And your name and my name is exactly the same. You live in St. Louis. I live in Kansas City. And I'd like to meet you. He was not interested in meeting me. I told him, I said, well, I come through there sometimes. I would like to. Incidentally, he's a pastor.
Okay.
I said, well, I come through there sometimes. I'd like to take you out to lunch and just sit down and see if we can figure out what's going on. Well, I never could hook up with him. I started looking for him probably 15, 20 years ago and never could hook up with him. Never could quite get to him. You know? Hang on, I got to play. So anyhow, that's I never did. And he also had a son named Ronald M Fraction.
His name was Ronald M Fraction, and he had a son named Ronald M Fraction.
Yes.
Very interesting.
And I was Facebook friends with his son for a minute or two, and some of the things he said on Facebook wasn't too becoming, and a little bit of cuss words now and then, and he kind of had a little bit of thuggish ways to him. So I cut him loose from Facebook, and had much to do with him. And it's like I say, his father was a preacher.
That's very
So
interesting.
you talked about like reconnecting with your families or trying to reconnect. How exactly did you learn about the work of Kerri Moseley-Hobbs and the More Than a Fraction Foundation?
Could you repeat that question?
Yes, sir. How did you learn about the work of Kerri Moseley-Hobbs and the More Than a Fraction Foundation?
I have a, I had a brother. They had three daughters.
Mhm.
One of the daughters went out east to a school, and she liked it so much she never returned. The middle daughter never, incidentally, she went to Hampton University, and she liked that part of the country so well she never returned. That was probably 30 years ago or so. And anyhow, she was living in Washington or Washington D.C. area,
Mhm.
and she saw that there was going to be a lecture on the Fraction family by Kerri Moseley-Hobbs. This was probably, let's see, oh, I don't know, maybe, yeah, 5 years, 4 or 5 years ago or so. And so she went and she called us. She said, "Well, we found a bunch of fractions." And we all said, what are you talking about?" She says, this woman wrote a book called More Than a Fraction. Well, I have a niece, Valerie.
Mhm.
Valerie is very outgoing. Valerie sang in the Sounds of Blackness. Her ex-husband started the Sounds of Blackness. And Valerie is very, very, very outgoing. So Valerie contacted Kerri Moseley-Hobbs, and they talked and talked and talked and got it together and tried to figure out what was going on. And she even invited Kerri Moseley-Hobbs to Minneapolis.
Hmm.
Well, we happened to then we decided we were going to be in Minneapolis when Kerri Moseley-Hobbs came there. And she came over to my sister's house, who's 95 years old now. She's probably 92 then or 91 or so. Anyhow, she came there and met, went out to lunch and just had a good time. She went over to a couple of my other nephews and nieces' house. Just had a good time with her. She's a good person. We spent like almost a week with her, at least 3 or 4 days. And that's how that's that's where we got the history of Kerri Moseley-Hobbs. Yeah, we got the well, yeah. She told us the whole thing about the history of the fractions. I mean, she had it all. She had the book, you know. And so I bought 3 books, one for me, one for my 2 sons.
Mhm.
You know, and my poor sister, while Kerri Moseley-Hobbs was there, my sister ordered from Amazon More Than a Fraction book about 8 times. So she had a bunch of books all came at the same time. And we don't know how she did that, but it kind of looked good to Kara. And we said, well, she really didn't want to have that many books, Kara. She just was an accident. So we had my wife and my other niece had to take them all back to the store to get them all sent back to Amazon. So that's how that worked.
What did you think of the book? Like, what was your first impressions of it? Did you learn anything new about your family's history?
Um, I think the book was a little hard reading. And yeah, I found a whole lot about the family history. Yes, absolutely. A lot about it. Uh, I would like to see, like I said, when we first began talking, I'd like to see that go a little bit further than a book on a shelf. That needs to be documented a little bit more than that. And I mean, the book was good, but now I think they need to take it to the next level. My niece Valerie, she made a little movie about the Fraction family. That was very, 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 very. She had a friend that was a movie maker, and she put it together, and it was very, very good.
What is that movie called?
What was that movie called? Do you remember? I can look it up. I can tell you. I can look it up and tell you. I don't know what it was called right offhand, but I can't tell you right now.
Okay.
We'll call Valerie and ask her. So I don't know the answer to that.
Did the book put some of your family history into perspective, what you did experience in Roanoke?
No,
Okay.
not at all. Not at all. Not even. No. Did not put anything into perspective. My experience in Roanoke, no.
No. So then any
Roanoke, then and now, was basically a place I went.
mm,
I went there, and when they start talking about the Fraction family having home base in Blacksburg,
mhm.
well, it was kind of shocking to me. I said, well, I mean, I spent a lot of time, well, not a lot of time, but a week or two down in Roanoke, which is interesting in itself. But no,
Yeah. So from the book, from everything you've read, what stories would you have liked to have seen added to it, or what kind of you mentioned a movie. What other portions of it would you like to implement to that story?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that a long while. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that right now. Can't give you any answer to that, definitive answer on that.
That's fair.
In the book, it talks about the Smithfield and Solitude plantations. Have you had a chance to visit those out in Blacksburg?
I haven't been to Blackburn.
Mm.
However,
Mhm.
I find a bit of pride. I find a bit of pride when I tell people about my roots from Blacksburg and Virginia Tech University. You know, it was slavery, but I still find a bit of pride
Mhm.
knowing that we came from somewhere,
Mhm.
and that somewhere was solitude, even though it was slavery. But I think the slave and the slave owner back at that time had a little thing going between the two of them. They didn't try to run over each other. You know, they didn't take anything from each other, the slave and the slave owner. And that in itself is a good story. It's a good story that when when the old fraction slave and they gave him a name, and and well, I shouldn't talk about this because I really don't know what I'm talking about. But they said that he was captured a slave,
Mhm.
actually about the time slavery ended. Slavery was about over. Captured as a slave, and the same person was let go as a free man in a short amount of time. So, you know, that in alone in itself is worth a story. So, if they did nothing else, I had that right there. That's a story right there.
Yeah. So you have met with multiple other fractions that you haven't personally known before. So looking through the uh, directories, have you decided to meet any of the Smithfield descendants
I would like
or
to,
the
but I
Prestons?
would, I would like to.
You'd
I
like
would
to?
like to, and 4 or 5 years ago I could have. 3 years ago I could have. My health is not real good right now. My health is not the best right now, and I would like to, yes. But I don't know if I'll be able to ever pull it off. I definitely would like to. Yeah.
Would you? This is kind of a side question with Dr. Higgins. Would you take the opportunity to, just like this conversation on a Zoom call, speak with a Preston family member?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
What kind of?
You know, they like Preston family members right now. I don't know what kind of where their heads are at right now. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you know, these people are my age. Some were younger than me. They
Yeah.
had nothing to do with plantation
Mhm.
or slavery or slavery. I'd be a kind of a lesser person if I said, well, you know, they came from slave owners and stuff like that. Well, they're people just like me now.
Yeah.
You know, they went to school with black people. what the kids probably black people live in their neighborhood and everything else. So yeah, I don't say, yeah, of course I would. Yeah, no problem. I'd like to find out where they're coming from.
Yeah.
When we went to Hawaii, we went to D-Day with
the memorial.
Where? Fairbanks.
That's Alaska.
No. I got another story to tell you. No, we went to Hawaii. There was a memorial in Hawaii for the ship that bombed, when all them ships got bombed in Hawaii. Pearl Harbor, absolutely. Yeah, Pearl Harbor. And most of the people that were visiting Pearl Harbor, Japanese, which I thought that's strange. They bombed Pearl Harbor, we just bombed the hell out of the whole Japan, and they want to come here to see Pearl Harbor. And I felt a little uneasy. And somebody told me, they said, well, the Japanese felt guilty about the bombing of Pearl Harbor. I think maybe some of the white folks feel guilty about slavery.
Right.
And I have another story for you, kind of interesting. We went to Alaska on a cruise, and we rented, me and my wife and my wife's friend and her husband. We all jumped on a cruise ship and headed for Alaska. We got to Alaska, we rented a van, drove all over the place. I have a nephew that lives in Alaska, Valerie's brother lives in Alaska. He lives up north of Anchorage. So we had planned on going to Denali Park, which is a big Denali Park and Denali Mountain and all that kind of stuff, north of Anchorage. So we went there, and then we drove on up to Fairbanks. Well, my nephew says, you need to go to the memorial for the founders of Fairbanks. Fairbanks is quite a ways north of Anchorage. He says, you need to go and look at the memorial. He says, there's a fraction on the memorial of one of the founders of Fairbanks. So we did, and There was truly a fraction on that great big plaque of about 150 people, 200 people, and one of them's name was Fraction. That plaque is a founder of Fairbanks, Alaska.
Wow.
We haven't quite put it together who she is. We got a pretty good idea. And we got a pretty good idea she was related to us. And we took a lot of pictures.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Are you working with anybody to try and figure out the history of the distant Fraction family members, like the founder in Fairbanks, or are you doing this on your own?
We're kind of doing it on our own.
Okay.
Valerie has kind of been working on
it. That's nice.
Excuse me for drinking.
We are tomorrow's people is the name of that.
Yeah, we are. The name of that Valerie made is called We Are Tomorrow's People. You might watch it. You might go to YouTube, see if you can pull it up. We Are Tomorrow's People. It's very good. And in that movie, my whole family's in there. My kids, everybody, my whole family's in there. It's very good. It's very interesting. It's interesting. I mean, it's not my sibling, my grandkids, and, all kind of people are in there from us. It's very interesting. We are tomorrow's people.
So, Mr. Fraction, how do you think the legacy of your family history continues to impact you and your relatives today?
Well, it's stronger now than it was because we kind of have a sense of who we were, where we came from. We have it. My father kind of his life. He didn't talk too much about his life, and we even found out that across the river from Minneapolis to St. Paul, Minnesota, which is a state capital, but back in the 1800s. Early 1900s, early, there was a record store in St. Paul owned by James Fraction. That's my father's name, James Fraction. And we don't know if his father's name was James Fraction or not. It could have been, we don't know. He never mentioned that before. We never mentioned a record store. He never mentioned his father. You know, he always said his father was a merchant marine. He worked on a ship as a cook. But that's all he ever told us. We didn't know anything else about his father or his brothers. He didn't talk about his family. For whatever reason, he never talked about his family. And since then, I mean, I talk about my family all the time. You know, I talk about my brothers, my sister, my two children. They know a lot about, but we don't know anything at all about his.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. It's important. Very important. We had to research to find out anything we wanted to know. We had to knit and pick.
Right.
Pick and knit, trying to find out literally bits of information in order to find out where he came from. And, you know, we always thought that he came from, well, he was born, I think, in North Carolina. But then we found out he lived most of his life up in Boston, where his sister lived. You know, they were kind of characters. They had my aunt Elizabeth, her husband, Uncle Chap, never had any children. I guess they had good jobs in Boston and didn't know what the hell to do with their money. And one time, Uncle Chap, he had the prettiest little old Cadillac. Well, no, it was pretty new at the time. Prettiest little two-door coupe Cadillac you ever seen, a little black two-door coupe Cadillac. He used to drive it to Minneapolis to see visitors. And sometimes, by the way, sometimes he would send us around Christmas time a great big wooden barrel. My dad would have to go down to the train station, pick it up. And that barrel was full of lobsters. And he'd bring that thing home, take the ring off and take the top off and start pulling live lobsters out of it. One lobster, a little bit of seaweed, two lobsters, a little bit of seaweed, three lobsters, a little bit of seaweed. And ended up with quite a few live lobsters coming out of that barrel. You know, but he was kind of eccentric. And one time he just wanted to buy something he didn't have, which was a tractor. Which is a big John Deere tractor. He used to drive that John Deere tractor to the grocery store and back. He said, well, Chap, what are you going to do with that tractor? Well, just drive it to the grocery store and back. You know, nobody else has gotten one. I want one. And he bought one. Now, wouldn't you call that eccentric?
Yeah, I definitely would.
I would too.
Was he a farmer or did he just drive a tractor?
He wasn't. No, he wasn't no farmer. He was a city man, lived in the city. He was no farmer.
He just wanted a tractor.
He just wanted a tractor. Just like I would go out and live in the city. I think I'll go get a tractor. Not a one to cut my grass, a real tractor. You know, where you're sitting up high and riding down the street and put and diesel and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was interesting.
Very, very. So, would you do something as eccentric as that, or?
I'm not that eccentric.
Okay.
I'm not that eccentric. Me and my wife are pretty low key. Well, I mean, we've taken a lot of trips. We've taken on many cruises. Been all over around the United States, all over the place, all the way through the Panama Canal. Got on the boat in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Then we went all the way to North America. Got on the boat in Fort Lauderdale. Got off the boat in Los Angeles through the Panama Canal. You know, we've taken many all the way to Alaska and back. You know, the whole Northeast, all the way up the Northeast coast, all the way all Halifax and all them places up there. Yeah, we cruised a lot. You know, we've had a good life. We had a very good life. You know, We married young,
Mhm.
and and we neither one of us was big time educated. However, we had a good life, real good life. We didn't ever have a. We built a house in
Right.
'88, a pretty good big house. You know, we had another. We built when we moved to Kansas City. They said, well, after we lived here a while, the real estate lady said, the tax lady said, well, you need to do something about that your house. You know, you're getting ate up by taxes. And how do
Mhm.
you do it? Well, you move into another house or something. So we said, okay. So we built a house, and we're still. That was 30 something years, and we're still in it.
Mhm.
You know, we built it like we
Wow.
found a pond, right on the pond. If you look up my address, you'll see the three ponds right behind my house, and
Mhm.
we had a good life. Two children, both go to college, both went to college, both got out of college, both got married, both
Mhm.
still married, uh, with children, grandchildren, and their kids are now grown up, and they've moved out, most of them. And some of them are still there at home, but some of them aren't.
Mhm.
No great grandchildren yet, but that will
Not yet.
come.
Mhm.
Mm.
You've been all over the place. You have a pretty vast, expansive experiences, uh, vast expansive experiences, and you've definitely looked for your own family members in the Fraction family. Uh,
Mm.
and there is also a ongoing discussion about reparations to families, descendants of slaves and their descendants, of course. What opinion do you have of that kind of reparations based on
I don't
everything
have,
you've seen and experienced?
I don't have much opinion on that.
Mhm.
You know, happened.
Right.
Reparation. You know, what happened back in those days happened. When I went to the shoe store in Virginia and I was
Mhm.
denied trying on a pair of shoes, it happened.
Mhm.
Not like that today, but it did happen then. And you know, nothing you can do about it now.
Yeah.
You know, what are you going to do? How would you do that? Sometimes it's like, excuse the language, but pissing into the wind.
Mm.
You know, it's not a very good thing to do. Leave it be. You know, that's
Yeah.
that's the way I kind of look at that. I mean, the people today don't have anything to do with the people of yesterday.
Right.
You know, the man's grandchildren that denied me trying on a pair of shoes,
Mhm.
they may even be married to black people now. Who knows?
Mhm.
You know, who even knows? What do you guys think about it? Well, you tell me. What do you think? You've been asking all the questions. Let me just ask you what you think.
Personally, I think it's because of segregation, everything. The idea of giving back to the community, not money or everything. So everything you have not gained, the ability not to get those shoes, and the rudeness that has come with it, not to directly say I'm sorry for that, but to equal out the playing field and for schooling, for resources, and for some of the housing lands that might have been not given back to the family members, but the laws and some of those things should just be removed from the books and make everything much more equal again, or as it should be, in my opinion.
Well, you know, you're talking about equalizing the playing field.
Mhm.
You know, that's going to happen, don't you?
A lot of things, a lot of
That's going
backfire
to happen.
possible.
That's going to happen when Jesus comes again. The equalizing of the field is not
Mhm.
going to happen until Jesus comes again. We're never going to be equal until
Okay.
Jesus comes again. You know, you might think you're equal, but you ain't. You know, when I look back on Minneapolis and white little Lily land, and you know, when you think back, we were pretty close to equal, but we weren't equal.
Yeah.
We were. There was a restaurant in Minneapolis called Charlie's in downtown Minneapolis. And you could go anywhere you wanted to go in Minneapolis, eat, drink, be happy, marry,
Hmm.
but you didn't want to go in Charlie's. It was a known fact. Don't go to Charlie's. Leave Charlie's alone. You're not welcome in Charlie's. We didn't know if Charlie's was what they would do. We didn't know if they'd spit in our food. We didn't know, but we knew that was a no-no. Charlie's was a no. And as far as I know today, if Charlie's is still there, it's still a no-no. You know, this is many years later.
Mm-hmm.
I always think I heard that Charlie's was a no-no, and that's just a place we didn't go. So as far as the equal playing field, wow, when are we going to see that? When's that going to come? Do you think the restitution is going to help for that? I don't think that restoration is going to help for any of that. I think it's reparation. I think it's going to take time. And I don't think we got enough time. I don't know if you God-fearing men or not, but, you know, I don't know, the second coming of Jesus. I don't know if you know about that or not. You know, a lot of things people say, well, when we die, we're going to go see Grandma or Aunt Mary and stuff like that. Well, when you die, you're dead.
Yeah.
You ain't going to see nobody until Jesus comes again, the second coming of Christ. When Jesus comes again, the earth will be made new. And that's when we're going to be equal. When Jesus comes again, we're not going to be equal to them. Yeah. Everybody tries to do this. Oh, we're going to give you this. Oh, we're going to give you that. Oh, we're making new laws for this. Oh, we're making new. It's the same. It hasn't changed. It's a different, they just do a few things to get you happy and so on and so forth. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be. No. It's not going to change a person's mind. My wife said, what she wanted to get something in, so it's not going to change a person's mind. It's not. It's not going to change a person's mind. People have, even though how deeply seated, even though they're smiling at you at one hand, smiling at you at one side of the mouth, they might not be smiling so good when you walk away.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You know, they just had this big election in Georgia, and half of the white folks were rooting for Warnock. The other half of them were rooting for the big football player.
Herschel
you know,
Walker.
And Herschel Walker. Yes. And only reason they were voting for them too, because that's the only choice they had. If there was a white person in there in that voting, who you think they'd be voting for? Yeah, I don't think it'd be Warnock or Herschel Walker by a landslide. So I mean, there's.
So, Mr. Fraction, I want to go back to Minneapolis real quick. Like in 2020, during the pandemic, everybody saw the white officer standing on his knee on his neck on George Floyd, and that occurred in Minnesota. So I was wondering, like, what were your thoughts on that incident? And was that the Minneapolis that you grew up knowing?
Okay, glad you asked me that. That was my neighborhood. That's where I was from. I lived on 38th and Clinton, and this happened on 38th in Chicago.
Oh.
On 38th in Chicago, there was a movie theater called the Nokomis Theater, which was named after a lake down the street called Lake Nokomis. And my dad used to give me, and other of my friends' fathers gave them a quarter on Saturday morning to go to Nokomis Theater and watch a movie on Saturday morning. For a quarter, you could get some milk duds, something to drink, and watch the movie for a quarter. That movie theater was 2 doors down from where George Floyd got killed. The building is still there. Whenever you see the area where George Floyd was killed, you'll see the building where the theater was. I think it's either a garage now or something, but you can see the building. If you look to the left of where George Floyd died, you'll see a building with 3 pillars in the front. That was where the movie theater was. When I grew up in Minnesota, I told you I didn't have any problems. Didn't have too many problems there. And whites and blacks got along good. We all went to, there was no such a thing. The blacks sit up in the balcony and the whites said, sit where you want to sit. Go where you want to go. Buy what you want to buy. Try on shoes. Try on pants. Try on underwear if you want to. There was nothing that would stop you from that. Well, about the time we moved to Kansas City, which is in about 75, we saw a migration of people moving from the south,
Mhm.
East St. Louis, Detroit, St. Louis, Memphis, Tennessee, Mississippi, Gary, Indiana, all these places on the south you heard of, all migrating to Minneapolis because Minneapolis had good, good, you know, good. Well, we'd see them in a rest stop. Sometimes we'd stop at a rest stop or a gas station, to get gas, just stretch your legs and go to the bathroom. But we'd see them, we'd talk to them, where you going? Well, we're going to Minneapolis. They got good welfare up there. We're going to get in on it. The city changed, totally changed. Minneapolis is now a dangerous place to go. Minneapolis is, you don't hear about anybody hijacking cars in a high rate. Minneapolis, they're hijacking people. You're afraid to go down the street in Minneapolis because they'll hijack your car and put you out just to go over to a friend's house or go to the grocery store and hijack the car to go back. That's Minneapolis. There was a street in Minneapolis called Lake Street. Lake Street. Lake Street ran from Mississippi River to Lake Calhoun and beyond, actually. But that was the basis of Lake Street from the Mississippi River to Lake Calhoun in Minneapolis. It was a great street. It was a pretty street. There was a lot of nice buildings, a lot of nice businesses on Lake Street. It just tore Lake Street up. It's a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous place to even hang out. You don't want to hang out in Lake. You don't even want to go over and stop. Don't even drive over Lake Street. And the place where George Floyd got killed, my neighborhood now, 5 blocks from where I live, 5 short blocks from where I live. Yeah. We got, right across, right where they first stopped George Floyd. First stopped him. You see a little kind of a gray building. Well, that used to be a laundromat. And that's where we drag our kids' little dirty butt laundry diapers up there to get them. They didn't have disposable diapers then. That's 63 years ago. They just had old plain cloth diapers. Well, we drag them up to that laundromat, which was right there where they first police came to stop George Floyd. That was right there. We could see the laundromat where it used to be. It's not a laundromat anymore. But, I mean, that was our neighborhood. Where the Cub Food is, where George Floyd was hanging out in, and where he was arrested and knee on the neck and all that kind of stuff. That was a drugstore. That was like a CVS drugstore. I don't think it was CVS back then. I think it was Walgreens maybe, but it was a drugstore at the time. And it was a very nice store. I mean, it was a nice drugstore. Caddy corner from there was a five and dime store. Dime store right across caddy corner from there. Straight across the street, I'm sure you saw that, the infamous gas station. That's always been there. So you got all the corners all invited for there. Yeah, so what you say?
Sorry, we lost you for a second, but you're back now.
Okay. Anyhow, so next question, what else you got? I'm trying to shoot them to you just the way I see them.
So tying it back into Blacksburg and your family's history, what would you want Virginia Tech students to understand and know about the Fraction family and that the land that they were enslaved on?
Yeah.
Well, I think we know a lot about it already. That's our family plot. That's where we came from. We were there before Virginia Tech was there. They should know about us, and they do. And they do. When you go to, all you got to do is go to Google and say the Fraction House at Virginia Tech, and you'll see my ancestors' house.
Mm-hmm.
Just all you got to Google it. Not many families can do that. Not many families can pull that off. They say, well, let's go back about 200 years and 150 years, look at somebody's house. Not many black families can do it. Not many families can do that. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's a pretty good legacy in itself. That's what I think.
How would you like your family to be represented in to the students of Virginia Tech? Just you particularly, and your father, your mother, that type of thing. Not the rest of the enslaved fractions, just yourself, if you wanted it to be at all.
I don't know if that's possible. I'd like to have a great big buff of my face up there on a gold plaque.
All right.
But I mean that's not possible. Because and the reason is because there's going to be fractions born after me and have just as big a right to be there as I do. But I think that every time a fraction is born, maybe put their name on a plaque. I don't know, because we came from there. That's our home. That's us. Blacksburg, Smithfield is us. It was us before it was Virginia Tech first. Wasn't it?
Yeah. So as a lot of those students and a lot of America tackles with everything that's happened since slavery, what would you like us to understand or to try and understand?
Could you repeat that?
In short, has a lot of the U.S. tackles with the effects of slavery and how it has led up to today. How would you like us to understand that from your perspective?
I couldn't answer that question. Can't answer that. I don't know where I'd start. I don't know how to answer that. It's a difficult question for me to answer, or even attempt to answer.
What's the first word, at least, that pops into your mind when thinking of that?
Virginia Tech?
Or any students you try to understand the effects of slavery and how it's led up to today?
Well, the students at Virginia Tech, I'm sure there was a lot of people that they stood on the shoulders of that were there before students are there now. And a lot of them took a lot of stuff before that. A lot of people and students took a whole lot of stuff before the students that are there now. Yeah. And so they have a lot to thank the forefathers and the sisters and mothers of Virginia Tech. They have a lot of thanks for the growth of them. But they don't have me to personally thank. I was just a little kid who wanted to try on a pair of shoes. That's all. That didn't go anywhere from there, or it didn't leave anywhere from there.
Okay, I understand that.
Mr. Fraction, is there anything you want to talk about that me or Andrew haven't thought of? Or is there something that you want to go back and talk about that you want to provide further explanation for?
Not really.
Not really.
You guys have been pretty thorough. You guys have asked the questions that I probably would have asked. You've been pretty thorough on it. I just like to say that had I have lived in Roanoke, Blacksburg, what my life would have probably been like there if I had lived there from my time of birth until now, what my life would have been like. I'm sure there's a whole lot of things have changed in that area since my birth in 1940 to 2022. A lot of things have changed. I mean, a lot of things have changed. And I'm sure they saw a lot of change in that part of the country, and good and bad and so on. So, I've heard that West Virginia is maybe one of the racist states around. I haven't spent much time in West Virginia, but Virginia's next to West Virginia, so well, how good is that? That's what I think. I'd say, I don't know.
Mr. Fraction, I wonder if I can jump in for a moment and just ask a question.
Sir. Yes, sir.
At the beginning of the interview, you talked about how you wanted the story to be shared. And I'm just curious to you, what does it mean to have this history recorded?
It means a great deal. We have other history, not necessarily oral history, other history that they brought out into the world. You know, if they can bring a history of the Titanic sinking and many, many, many people killed, they could bring back the history of the Fraction family that went from slavery to free man and had things to do with the governor of Virginia, had things to do with a recognized college, university, Virginia Tech University, all that they can tie up to us. And it should be tied in. People should know around the country about us. People should know around the country about the slavery at Smithfield and all that entailed. You know, they should have a chance to, if they want to hear it. If they don't want to hear it, stick a rock in their ears. But they should be able to have the opportunity to hear the story. It's a good story. It's like a documentary, or perhaps a documentary that is true as they can make it. You know, I don't know if you were here when I was telling you about my niece made a movie about our family. Did you hear that?
Yes, sir.
Family. Yeah. Well, you all should watch that movie. That's very good. It's not that long. It's only 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Not that long. But it's very, very good. And if a little crackerjack girl from Minneapolis can do that, what could Steven Spielberg do?
Right.
I'm curious, Mr. Fraction, what is your wife's name?
My wife's name is Patricia. Come here, Ben. Come here, Ben. We've been married a long time. I'm going to come over here. Okay. Oh.
I just wanted to thank her for helping with the interview.
This is my wife, Patricia.
Such a pleasure to meet you.
Hello.
How's everybody today? Thank you so much for taking your time to make this interview possible. We're so excited about it and so happy.
She's my rock and she's my backbone.
To do it.
It's a great honor to be able to do this work, and thank you for supporting and helping as well.
Yes.
Well, I'd still like to go back and ask you guys, thank you, Tricia, and ask you guys again, what is the purpose of this?
Well, the purpose from my perspective is recording history. You know, I think it's really important to grapple with the past and to record voices, and especially give people opportunity to tell their stories who haven't always been considered important enough to record. You know, I think that the work that Kerri Moseley-Hobbs is doing is really important. And I think that oral history can help with those efforts at trying to reconcile with the past and try to learn from it. That's always my goals as a teacher, as a historian. I'm always trying to learn from the past and listen to the words of wisdom from people like you.
Yes. Well, and that's all true. But I think we need to take it a little further than that. That is all true. Kerri Moseley-Hobbs, you know, she got the ball rolling. I think the ball needs to go a little further and a little faster. If you get on a hillside and start rolling downhill a little bit. The old slave tree, I don't know, there's not much. Incidentally, she brought us all parts of that slave tree. She brought us, when she came to Minneapolis, she brought us sawdust from it and a branch from it.
It started to die.
Because it was started to die about the time she came here. Since then, I think they've cut it down.
I'm curious, what future directions would you like to see this work to go?
Well, I kind of voiced my opinion on that. I'd like to see it made into a documentary. I'd like to see our Fraction family.
Document, especially when it started on the ground.
Especially when it started on the ground. My wife said, especially when it started on the grounds of Virginia Tech. which a lot of people think of Virginia Tech as a great school, and it is a great school.
Yeah.
But we were there before Virginia Tech was there. And so were the Indians. And, I just say, give us a chance to see ourselves in our light that we should be seen in. Give ourselves a chance. That's all I ask.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Where would you like to see it go? I mean, it sounds good, what we're documenting, it all sounds good. Well, we want to see what the people's voices sound like, and so on and so forth. Make it Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
make it Gone with the Wind.
I just hope that people reckon with America's past and they realize that this actually happens, because we live in a culture where there are people who are trying to influence by saying this didn't happen, or trying to support, try to be supporters of non-believers. But I just hope that people will see this and know and learn and grow, and they can also spread this information to others. And if they spread the right information, then we can all get to a conversation where we can talk about equality, we talk about all our issues, and then make a world seem like a safe place for everybody.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's all good.
And in my view, stories like these and more research and more digging into the past, it should be a required learning for the whole of the United States history, because this is something that the rest of the United States just covers up and puts underneath the rug and says it doesn't happen. What you experienced to get the shoes, any other person, anybody else of that story says, Dad, who cares? It's just a kid just getting shoes. You got rude. The stories like you're telling us and everything, they should be put in a wider picture. This should be education that is mandatory to be taught about the United States. Yes, we get to learn about George Washington. Yes, we get to learn about the Civil War, but there are a large group of people that are just ignored that should never have been ignored in the first place.
Right. Absolutely. Thanks for saying that. Thank you for saying what you just said. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was good. And that's true. And it's all true.
Yeah.
All true.
Mr. Fraction, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk to my students, to educate us, and to give us an opportunity to record your family history. I think that your voice is really important and significant, and people can learn from you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much. Let me ask you this.
Thank you.
Is there anywhere where I can see this interview?
Yes, sir. Whenever we record it, we're going to preserve it. It might take a couple of months to do it, but I'm going to send you the interview. I'll give you a copy of it. We'll give you a copy of the transcript as well.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Or Dr. Jason.
I like Dr.
And
Jason.
I'd like to say something to you about Doctor. You have been very professional through this whole thing, even up until the time we were unable to get on today. But you've been very, 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 very professional. I thank you for that.
Well, I thank you for acknowledging that. I put a lot of work into this work because I think it's important. I think we should think about this professionally. That stories like yours deserve to be recorded by professionals, and I also think that students like Andrew and Kenyon here should have the opportunity to engage in this type of work as well.
There you go. Very, very true.
Did you guys have any more questions for Mr. Fraction?
At least myself, I got all the questions that I currently think I wanted to answer. But if we continue talking, I'm sure more will come up.
Pretty much.
No.
Mr. Fraction, if after the interview today you think of anything that you wanted to share that you didn't think of during our conversation today, you can always reach back out to me. I would be delighted to talk with you more.
Okay. Very good, Doctor. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For taking the time for me and asking the questions that you asked that I would have never thought of asking. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day, Mr. Fraction.
Okay, bye to all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.